Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner.
Welcome to another edition of Kicking It with Bird and Mook. You're here with your hosts, Brian Mook McMurdy and Robert Bird Brown. We have another wonderful guest. We keep getting lucky with the guests we've got. Today we've got former Archbishop Curley High School player, DC United player, national team player, and current Baltimore Bohemians coach, Santino Caranta. Welcome aboard, Santino.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
You probably don't remember this, but I guess it's been about 13 years ago when you got drafted. I was coaching a Westminster Wolves team, and we had a partnership with DC United. You came out to Gersdale Academy down in Finksburg, and you did a little, hour and a half session with my boys and then talked to them and everything. And you literally had been drafted like the week or two that we had that meeting.
Yeah, I do. I actually do remember. Some of the kids were probably older than I was at the time.
It was pretty close. I know that. My son's about your age, so it's pretty close.
Yeah, I do remember. It's a great school. I don't remember everything, but I remember it was a good day and it was a fun event.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility, and they've done nothing but grow their academic facilities over there. It's still really one of the top areas we have in the county. Last week we had Brian Kraling on here from the Kraling Sports Agency, and he talked about what it's like to have a Baltimore athlete and getting involved in soccer and where we could take them, and those kind of opportunities probably weren't there in 2001 when you were drafted.
The landscape of soccer and how kids, the path that they take has certainly changed. It was kind of one outlet for me, and back when it was kind of ODP and working your way up to high school and then hopefully getting a chance with the under-17 national team. And again, it was 18 to 20 players from around the country, so it was really a long shot. Now there's a lot of different outlets for kids to go in terms of their club soccer. For girls with the ECNL, it's so many different paths that they can take to get to the next level.
Yeah, he's talking about that ECNL. I mean, one of my top players, a girl named Ariana Rinda, who's a freshman at Towson, was last year's Carroll County Player of the Year, and she played for Bethesda team that was in that ECNL, and they did quite a bit of traveling. I think some of her games were in San Diego and Chicago and Dallas, and that's kind of the future of the game, or the current status of the game.
Like I said, it just keeps getting bigger, and the amount of kids that play, you're always looking for the next big thing, and I think different agencies and different leagues around the country, including U.S. Soccer, are trying to figure out what works best and how you identify these kids, and it's certainly a talking point with a bunch of different parents and players.
Well, yeah, maybe if you could take us back to 2001, and I don't know, it's been quite a while, even for you, you've had plenty of opportunity to have some life experiences. What was it like when you got that first call, from the MLS, from DC United, at that time, basically our hometown team, that you were going to be drafted and playing in the pros?
Well, it was interesting because, I signed a Project 40 deal down in Bradenton while I was with the U.S. national team, the 17s. I lived down there. I just left Eddie Johnson down at DC United. We were both touted as, the next big things when we were young, and I remember signing the deal, and DC United didn't have any draft picks in the top 10, so I didn't think initially I was going to go to DC. I was planning on wherever. I was just really, really happy to be a part of it. Wherever I went. And the night before the draft, they made 3 big moves and traded away a lot of their veteran guys, and then had the picks in the draft, three of the top 10 picks, and that's when I started to kind of have a realization that there was a chance that I could go to D.C. I didn't know I was going until my name got called.
So the first time you heard about it wasn't a phone call saying, hey, we're about to draft you, or?
Well, what had happened was the draft was held down in Miami, so we had the combine, and then the draft was the kind of, I forget what day it was on, but we had the combine, a few days of playing, and so we all kind of got together in the big convention room, and the commissioner and everybody started to kind of call names out, and that was it. That's how I found out, when the commissioner called my name over at the podium.
Wow, that had to be pretty exciting.
And my family was there. Like I said, I didn't really. It was a dream to be able to go to D.C., being from Baltimore, and I think that, that was kind of in their best interest too, because of the media exposure and having a young guy from Baltimore. They wanted to tap into that market.
That's what we're trying to do, tap into the market as well and get a pro team here quickly as possible. Hey, Santino, when growing up, who was your mentor? Who was the one who kind of, between the push and the pull? Obviously, today we have a lot of different scouts that can navigate players through the system, but who was instrumental in getting you to the next level?
My father was a huge influence, and my grandfather as well. they were the ones that pushed me when other kids were not doing the work to get to the next level, and I really didn't like it all the time. But I now realize why I did the little things and why they pushed me so hard. So the most influential person would have been my father and my mother as well. But the person who really, from a coaching point of view, when I started to really progress on, was John Ellinger. He was the one who took me and picked me to go down to Florida. He was a local guy, but he was an excellent coach. He was like a father figure to me down in Florida when I was down there for those 18 months. And we had a real understanding of one another. And he was initially the guy who pushed me on once I was out of the hands of, my family.
Did your parents or grandparents play at all?
Yeah, my grandfather played, my father, my uncle, everybody in my family. It's a real soccer background, and they were really successful. But again, it wasn't as many outlets and it wasn't as many opportunities as it is today, for many players from Baltimore. So they played at high levels, but, when we're talking about a high level, it was obviously much different back then.
So, like from Curly, then to Eastern Avenue, I'm an outsider from Philadelphia, and I'll tell you, the number one area that had the best talent for over the years with the old NASL, even including yourself, happens to be from your neighborhood.
I think that some of the players that are still talked about today, if they would have had the same opportunities like there is today, there would have been 25 to 30 players that would have been professional players.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and I was going to come back to something you mentioned earlier about your dad, your grandfather, whatever, pushing you outside to make you do the work. I mean, is that really the magic 8-ball, if you will, that kind of foresees your future? Is the hard work, the work ethic that you put in to get yourself there?
I think there's so many different intangibles to being great. I think there has to be a mental toughness to be able to withstand hard work like that. Look, a lot of people work hard, but there has to be the talent has to go along with it, the attitude, the breaks that you have to get along the way. There's so many different ways to becoming a professional, and it's not just playing on the field. I think it's the attitude, it's the mental toughness, being able to cope with, at 16 years old, being yelled at by guys that are 30 years old, and how you adapt to it, how you react, so many different things.
So how do you feel being the new coach of the Baltimore Bohemians and being the gateway to all these players that, you're the one that went outside, say, the pipeline by yourself, so to say, and now that you can farm people in your backyard? How's that feel? I'm
really honored to be a part of the Bohemian staff. To be the head of it is great, and to work for guys that run this, and Phil Terabasi and his sons and the Angelos family, it's been really something that I'm proud to be a part of. In terms of the kids, being able to have a connection and, help them understand what it does take, because a lot of these kids, in all honesty, have been touted as, they've been told they've been great, because they're all coming from places, big-time schools, and, now to make a jump to the next level, they're not going to be told how great they are, because they're not going to be the best on the team anymore. It's a situation where, again, it's adapting to the environment that you're put in, the mentality of, what it takes to be a professional, and if you even can move on to the next level, if you're capable of doing it. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to push possibly 1, 2, 3, however many it is, on to the next level.
Okay, I want to hold that thought. We've got to pay some bills, so we'll be right back with more Kicking It with Bird and Mook.
Hi, this is Jeff Laird, owner and general manager here at WTTR. Last December, when I bought the station, I knew that I couldn't leave any stone unturned about the operation of the station. I looked at everything: the personnel, the format, our commitment to the community, revenue opportunities, expenses, everything. And there was an expense that was making me extra crazy. We were spending a ton on ink cartridges, toners, and drums, over $400 a month, so I did a full review and called in several vendors to help us with our document processing needs. And there was one vendor that stood out from all the rest: Document Essentials. Brian McMurty of Document Essentials came in, looked at what we needed, and recommended a solution of network printing, faxing, scanning, and copying for just $179 a month. It's a no money down, turnkey approach. Well, it's only been a couple weeks, but I already can see the savings, and we certainly don't look like one of those big box stores storing all kinds and types of ink cartridges. If your copier, fax, or laser printer doesn't have a service contract, or you're paying way too much like we were to process documents, then call my friend Brian McMurty of Document Essentials. 410-857-5255, extension 107. That's 410-857-5255, extension 107.
Welcome back to Kicking It with Bird and Mook. We're here with our guest, Santino Caranta. Santino, before we left on break, one of the things Mook was asking about or talking to you about was about your leadership role. You've transitioned now from a player to a coach, and some of these guys are coming up out of the college ranks and looking to you to help them get to the next level. What can you tell us about the expectations this year for the Bows? I mean, we're out there trying to get people interested in the product and get them out to the seats, and now's a great chance for you to tell us why we should be there.
Certainly, the talent is there, and on paper, in my opinion, we have some of the best players, not just in the area, but actually in the country. I think from talk about grassroots and really playing with real passion. These guys are doing it for free, and they're doing it because they really have an ambition to go on to the next level. The amount of kids that would like to be a part of an MLS team or just be given a chance to train one day is in the millions. And these kids that we have really have an opportunity, if they take it well, to move on and play. And, underneath me, I think that they certainly have outlets to move forward. And hopefully we can push some of these guys on to be given the opportunity to play the USL or an MLS team.
Last year, you placed a couple in the draft, and one of them landed at the MLS level, one of them landed at the USL Pro level. You expect some of that same kind of success again this year for some of your players that might be coming out the back end of your program?
I do. I think we just signed a few players from Georgetown, and in my opinion, if they wanted to, I actually just had this conversation with the head coach at DC United. If they wanted to make the jump today, they could. I think they have aspirations of finishing school, but again, I think that there is going to be kids. It might not be by their choice. It might not be this year, but kids from this current team, they will wear an MLS shirt.
So we're definitely looking at tomorrow's talent today if people show up to the stadium at Calvert Hall.
Sure, absolutely. And I think, like I told the kids, there's been real media exposure. And, we're sitting here talking about this group, and people are genuinely interested in, watching guys play and play for the shirt, and that's what Baltimore is. I think it's a town that stands behind their teams, but you got to win for them to stand behind you. So that's a big part of it.
That's a great point, because we do suffer through our, the Blast had a little spell, the Orioles have a spell, the Ravens have had a spell, but pretty much we're a pretty successful sports franchise town, and we get behind our guys, and we really rally behind them. And that's kind of what we're looking to do with this radio show, with getting guests like yourself on here, is to get the interest and get people out to the seats. And obviously you guys will take care of putting the product on the field, but it's our job to put some behinds in the seats, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's our job to win. And if people are buying tickets, we're entertainers, and that's what I tell these guys. Even as an MLS player, we had to win games, but there's a way to do it and entertain. And the quicker these guys can pick that up and understand that they are entertainers, the better off they're going to be.
Hey, in all your travels, what's the best soccer town, like the top two? Just the fans being nuts, people backing it, the talent, the stadium, just the aura, the atmosphere?
Seattle and Portland. Toronto's close, but there's for my money, there's no other place in MLS or in this country that has soccer atmosphere like Portland or Seattle.
And then looking back on your career, what was the best moment that you look back to?
As a player, it would have been, I was fortunate to accomplish a lot, from a team standpoint, winning the MLS Cup in 2004 with guys like Ben Olsen and Ryan Nelson and Mike Pecky, all head coaches in the league. That was something I'll never forget. But personally, it was coming back and playing with the national team at RFK and scoring against Honduras that night in front of so many people. It was thrilling. It's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's funny, Santino, you brought me back to, you're talking about Ben Olsen, who I have to say is my favorite U.S. soccer player. And then I liked him as a player, but the thing that stood out for me is we had our little guys down at a DC United game one time, and he stopped and high-fived every kid in that tunnel and rubbed their head and gave them all kinds of kudos. And everybody walked out that day saying what a wonderful guy. Forget soccer players, just what a wonderful person he is. I mean, I would hope to think that some of these boat players, we bring some of these rec programs down, club programs down to watch the game, that they're probably going to be just as approachable as somebody like Ben Olsen.
It's going to be, it won't be tolerated if they're not. because this is about leaving an impression on a kid. Like we're talking about Ben Olsen from years ago, and the least that these Bohemian players can do is embrace the fans, and that was one thing that's the one thing I thoroughly miss, is being able to interact with kids and fans on a weekly and daily basis. That's the part that you should be lucky enough one day if kids want to shake your hand and their faces and they're smiling faces at you. That's a gift.
It sure is, because I mean, just anything. It doesn't have to be. They don't have to become the next, David Beckham or Santino Carranza or whatever. But just the fact that you pass that same passion down to them, to be fans, to be agents, to be owners, to whatever it is in the game, and that's something we all certainly could take credit for.
I think it's great. Like I said, it's really cool to have kids come and watch you play, and to be able to shake their hand and have some fun with them is something that they'll carry on for the rest of their life as well.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I guess the first opportunity they'll have to do that is May 14th. It's a Wednesday evening, 5:30 at Calvert Hall. And tell us about, is it Icon FC?
It is, Icon FC, and we're really looking forward to the opportunity to play in the Open Cup. I was fortunate enough to win an Open Cup as a player with DC United, and I really enjoy the history and what it means, the tournament, how it embraces amateurs and then on the professionals, and it gives everybody the opportunity to win it. And that's why I told the players, it's such a historic and memorable thing. You might not get a chance to ever play in this thing again. So it's something that we're really looking forward to as a club.
And how many matches do the Bohemians play before we can start playing a Major League Soccer team?
I don't think it's many, because we're already into the middle of June. I know the MLS teams start, the middle of May. The MLS teams would start playing somewhere in June, so it can't be many. I'd say 2 to 3 games maybe, and then you move forward to the big stuff.
So if we beat New Jersey Icon, then pretty much down the road we may be looking at a various Major League Soccer team.
Yeah, I don't know who the second round game would be after the 14th, but I'd imagine real quick you'd have a USL or a top-tier team in the next couple games. Do
you think Baltimore fans would support that?
I surely hope so. Again, it comes down to marketing and how it gets out to the fans, but I think if they had the opportunity to watch kids play against professionals, it's certainly something that I would like to watch.
I was going to ask you, since you're on the other side now, I mean, as a player for an MLS team, and number one, did you ever play like a USL Pro team or a PDL team? And if you did, what was the pressure like? It has to be just as much pressure on the MLS teams to compete against the lower division teams.
So it's much harder for the MLS teams. I have played against the lower level teams, and we played against the Richmond Kickers, and we've been in the penalty kicks, and we've lost. And the pressure, because a lot of times it is the first game. Some coaches take the Open Cup different than the others, the initial round. And MLS teams are ripe for a taking early on. They really are, because the demands of the season. I think that this year PDL and USL teams might be at a disadvantage because the World Cup break for MLS teams, so they aren't playing, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. They have some time to prepare. And it is a prestigious event where it's starting to change in terms of what they offer if you do win the Open Cup in the CONCACAF, and so MLS teams are really taking it serious.
So we'll be right back with more Kicking It with Bird and Mook.
Hi, this is Jeff Laird, owner and general manager here at WTTR. Last December, when I bought the station, I knew that I couldn't leave any stone unturned about the operation of the station. I looked at everything: the personnel, the format, our commitment to the community, revenue opportunities, expenses, everything. And there was an expense that was making me extra crazy. We were spending a ton on ink cartridges, toners, and drums, over $400 a month, so I did a full review and called in several vendors to help us with our document processing needs. And there was one vendor that stood out from all the rest: Document Essentials. Brian McMurty of Document Essentials came in, looked at what we needed, and recommended a solution of network printing, faxing, scanning, and copying for just $179 a month. It's a no money down, turnkey approach. Well, it's only been a couple weeks, but I already can see the savings, and we certainly don't look like one of those big box stores storing all kinds and types of ink cartridges. If your copier, fax, or laser printer doesn't have a service contract, or you're paying way too much like we were to process documents, then call my friend Brian McMurty of Document Essentials. 410-857-5255, extension 107. That's 410-857-5255, extension 107.
So we're back with Kicking It with Bird and Mook, and before we left on commercial, I was asking Santino about some of the opportunities he talked about for an MLS team that might win this Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. So if you don't mind, just pick up from there, Santino, and then what are the opportunities?
So once you compete in the Open Cup and you win the Open Cup, also the MLS Cup, the Supporters Shield, that's the top winner, the top point getter in MLS. You're then entered into the regional competition, which is the CONCACAF Champions League, and you play against teams from, the winners from the islands and Mexico and the Caribbean, and it's just a great opportunity for the club's exposure, number one. But number two, more importantly, you're playing against the best teams from Mexico and different places. That is really, really cool. And I was fortunate enough to play in the CONCACAF Champions League and play against some just incredible teams and see some incredible places in different stadiums and venues. And it was a really fun event.
So what are the crowds like in, a place like Mexico?
It's hard to explain. They live and die for the shirt that those guys are wearing. It's not just... I'm going to go to the game on Sunday, and when I go home, we'll be done with it. This is it's a part of their life since they've been, this is the team that they support because they learned how to walk, and, it's ingrained in their blood, so when they cheer and when they, wave the flag, it's almost like they fight or die for it, and you can hear it and you can feel it and you can see it in their faces. I mean, that's something that's a little bit different from America and the European and the Mexican and South American team. It's just a different culture.
You mentioned Seattle and Portland and Toronto before about the rabid fans. Is it coming close maybe or just different?
I do think that Portland and Seattle were the loudest venues that I've ever been a part of. Seattle, it was 36 or 38,000 people, and they sing and they yell the whole game, and it becomes a real party, and it's something that, as an opposing player, it's almost a benefit to play in an environment like that because you don't see it all the time. I just had this conversation of how, venues like in Portland, you don't even have to give your team a pregame speech, a pep talk, because they already have it. They know what they're getting into. They're excited to play in it.
Wow, those are great. I love watching some of those games. I was a big fan of having games here in D.C. We go down and watch the national team play there, but I watched one game in Seattle, and I said they should play every home game in Seattle, every home U.S. game in Seattle, just for that reason.
I agree.
Well, if we could, if you don't mind, we're gonna switch over and focus a little bit more on our program here called Lords of Baltimore, which I'm going to allow Mook to talk about. But really just wanted to get your input and maybe ways that we can work together to make this thing happen in Baltimore. So Mook, if you don't mind.
A couple of weeks ago, Tim Holt was on the show, and his basically mentioned was a three-legged stool. We're glad that Santino is on the air now. As Tim, a little bit older now, had mentioned that it's a three-legged stool, and it's part of a business partnership. Now, we have Liberatory signed up, Jiffy Lube, and also Green Turtle, and proudly to announce that Jerry's Mitsubishi is now the proud sponsor of the Baltimore Bohemians. And what we're looking for is for people out in Radio Land to know if you have any contacts at maybe, say, McCormick Spice or Sinclair Media or any other media outlet that's able to kind of harness this juggernaut that we're trying to get the word out that there is a team. Let's build it, and obviously you're coaching it. So can you put any input, what you would like to see done?
I think, like I said, you create an environment, you create a place where people can get behind the team and thoroughly enjoy it, and you create players that entertain. I think it's a win-win situation. There's a lot of youth players, but more importantly, a lot of this new generation of soccer fans is, I think, different than the soccer mom and soccer dad. I think that they get behind their team, and it's not just, we'll go to the game for $10 and then when we leave, we're done. I think the culture's changing, and I think that fans can certainly get behind it. Baltimore Bohemians, it's a part of our city.
It's funny because one of the things that we're trying to do is to expand. We have our own Lords of Baltimore program up here in Carroll County. We're trying to expand that out, and one of my friends happens to be your cousin Tony Buda, and I've been talking to him about being a Lord and creating the same kind of opportunity up in his neck of the woods. So I'm going to need your help in twisting his arm a little bit and and make sure he brings a good crew down there.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. I know he's doing really well with the youth, the Pipeline youth team, and he's actually in the State Cup Finals this coming weekend. So, well, he's in good company to become a Lord. He's got a lot of connections.
Yeah, hopefully by the time this show airs on Sunday night, he'll be hoisting the State Cup trophy.
There you go.
And the Green Turtle across the region they've been contacting us to try to get people to start a Lords at their each location. So it's a great way to get everybody together and move forward.
I agree.
What else do you think we can do for to support your guys? I mean, do your guys get out into the community at all? Do they work with, like you did when you were at DC United? I mean, is that something that you're planning on doing throughout the summer?
It is a bit of a sprint for these kids.
True.
The season, so if I had a 10-month season, they'd certainly be doing a lot. But it's such a sprint that we're just managing minutes, and we're managing the games that come so fast. 15, 16 games in 2 months is tough. So, really with the kids with still finishing up school and taking courses at the different colleges, it's hard to ask a bunch of them. But we'll certainly do as much as we can post-game stuff, even leading up to the game, so the fans can kind of interact with these guys.
All right, I have one other question for you. What's it like playing at Calvert Hall when you're Archbishop Curly Boy?
I tell you what, as I've gotten older, I've started to realize that I have some good connections at Calvert Hall as well.
I'm sure you do.
Back when coming from East Baltimore, I was really a curly guy through and through. Now, getting a little bit older, seeing the benefits of both schools and how business works, I'm actually looking forward to having the opportunity to work at Calvert Hall. It's a centralized location, great facilities, and I actually, run a lot of the youth soccer in the area. A lot of my kids on my under 16 boys team, they go to Calvert Hall. I got 5 or 6 kids, so I almost feel like I know as hard as this is for curly fans to hear, I root for Calvert Hall.
Except for when they play curly.
That's it. That's the only time.
Sounds like we just need to unite all these rivalries to at the next level to bring pro here to Baltimore.
That seems to be the talking point. Is we have a lot of big wigs in the area, and can we put the egos aside and come together and fix this thing and make it work? Because I think it's the new era. It's the way that this country's going. The amount of youth soccer players in this country and the level that I've seen just traveling around with my youth team, it's absolutely incredible from when I played to now.
And speaking of bigwigs, I have to ask this question. Somebody of your caliber, who are you still in awe with when you meet somebody from soccer that's maybe retired or still playing today?
I'm more impressed with now being on the coach's side of how coaches manage teams. I like the fact that they have to deal with so many egos. Guys like Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, and these kind of guys that have had so much success on so many different levels is understanding how they interact with the player. Being a player for me was easy. I just show up and I use my talent and I play and run and go home. When you manage a team, you're managing so many different things and, how to get the best out of players and how to make them work for you and how to have a good relationship with them, how to be stern. So I'm more amazed at the guys like Bruce Arena and those type of guys that have done this for so many years.
Well, I'd probably share this with everybody in this room that we are very excited about the upcoming season. I mean, we're about 2 weeks away now from your Open Cup game. We all are going to work our tails to get everybody to that game, and certainly you'll get your boys ready to play for us. So we wanted to thank you for taking the opportunity to come out to be on our show today. Hopefully, as the season progresses and you've had some success, we'd like to invite you to get you back on here. Maybe talk about some more in-game type of opportunities and maybe some as we move along in this U.S. Open Cup. Talk about some successes there. So again, we appreciate you coming out, and hopefully you'll accept our invitation again and come back on and continue to promote soccer in Baltimore.
No, we, on behalf of all the guys at the Bohemians, we really appreciate your work, and I'll certainly be on again, only if we're winning though.
Well, we expect you to win then. We want you back on here.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, keep in mind, guys, that we Wednesday, May 14th, the U.S. Open Lamar Hunt Cup. Your Baltimore Bohemians playing against FC Icon from New Jersey. Make sure you get to the game, 5:30 at Calvert Hall. Tickets are only $15. I'm sure you can get them at the door, but hopefully by the time you show up, there's a line around the corner. Again, we want to thank our guest Santino Carranza, More importantly, we want to thank Robin for always making us sound good on the show, and look forward to seeing you next week for more Kicking It with Bird and Mook.
About the bird.